Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So we will continue our discussion on registration, where we had stopped for. So partnership firm, there's a question here. Partnership firm makes intrastate supply of DSA services to public sector bank, ITC. Okay. Anything to do with the present chapter, we will take up questions on this. And then if there is some other questions on other chapters, then we will take, so that because we will have to complete this chapter today, right? So we will discuss on registration specifically, and any other topics, if time permits, we'll take it up at the end. Okay, so registration we understood, we spoke about the threshold limit, and we have also spoken about few other aspects which are critical for registrations. Today we'll understand the procedure for registration, what is cancellation of registration, how can the registration be cancelled, and those aspects. So some important slides from our previous class we will read up now. One is on the aspect of the limit, right? If you have registration in two states and one state is providing only exempt turnover, so in that state registration is not required, even though you are touching the threshold limit, because you will have to take registration only in that state where you are making a taxable supply. That is one aspect. Second is on the limits. 10 lakhs is the limit for 4 states, which is, we know the shortcut name and we know the state's name also. 20 lakhs is for both goods and services for the 6 states, and for the rest of the states, it is 20 and 40. 20 is the limit for services and 40 is the limit for goods, right? There was this example which we were discussing on whether you have to take registration from where you're making a supply or to where you're making a supply. So registration will be made from the place where you are making a supply and not to the place where you're making a supply. Say you are in Tamil Nadu and you are supplying from Tamil Nadu to Haryana. So you are not required to take registration in Haryana. IGST will take care of it. When you supply something, IGST will charge. So your registration in Tamil Nadu is sufficient. In this case of Uday Enterprises, this was another example which was very critical for us to understand that your turnover is 34 lakhs in Maharashtra and 11 lakhs in Nagaland. And we said that if the threshold limit reduces because you are having in a special category state, your threshold limit gets reduced in Maharashtra also. But however, since in you're supplying alcoholic liquor in Nagaland, so that will not get reduced. That was a very good learning which we had. Okay. Now continuing from where we had stopped, we had spoken about compulsory registration. Who will have to take compulsory registration? A person who is making a interstate taxable supply. Then a casual taxable person. Now, when we say on the first aspect of a person making interstate taxable supply, if a chartered accountant provides services, okay, he has a client. I am a chartered accountant. I am based out of Bangalore. I am providing audit services. The client is in Mumbai and I will charge IGST. Now, if this chartered accountant is a fresher and he is having a turnover of 10 lakhs. So because of one client who is in Mumbai, should he register for GST? Because we have said persons making interstate taxable supply. Khushi Singh is saying yes, it is required. Vismita is saying no. Hardik is saying no. Nayan Patel is saying no. Ajay Surya is saying yes. Kambeshwari, Neeru, Bhaskar, Pallavi. Okay, lot many people are saying no. Preeti Kumar is saying yes. Komal is saying no. Okay, lot of mixed reaction, but more bias towards yes than no. More bias towards no than yes. The reason why people are saying no is because they have read this exemption. Okay, I'll point this out. Exception is taxable services. Okay, so if you are providing taxable services, then you do not have to do registration even if you are doing a interstate supply. For the taxable services, the limit of 20 lakhs will apply. Okay, so when you say person making interstate taxable supply, it's only goods. Okay, so in our example, the chartered accountant from Bangalore who is supplying services interstate to Mumbai and his threshold limit is below 10 lakh. The chartered accountant's friend, our friend chartered accountant's threshold limit is below 20 lakhs. So he need not take registration even if he's making an interstate supply. Okay, so you have to be very careful in reading between the lines. When they say something, you have to read the exception to that rule also. The rule says that person making interstate taxable supply, fine. Now, when he is making an interstate taxable supply, but he is providing taxable services, then he need not take the registration. Clear? Goods, then yes, perfect. If it is good, then he will have to take registration. Then a casual taxable person, we will have to take registration always. For him, the threshold limit will not apply. Then person required to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism and non-resident taxable person, e-commerce operator, TDS deductor, agents, input service distributor, and OIDAR service providers. These people will have to compulsorily have to take registration. Okay. Then on e-commerce operator specifically, there is a very interesting thing that one is if you are an e-commerce operator, then every e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source, he will have to take compulsory registration. The person who is an e-commerce operator, right, who is an e-commerce operator who runs the e-commerce platform. Now, one person could be, example could be Amazon. Amazon does e-commerce activity. He gets the customers and he gives the orders to the vendors. So he's only operating this e-commerce platform and he is required to collect tax at source because whatever supply is happening through this e-commerce, he is responsible to collect tax at source. That is first kind of e-commerce operator. Second is those persons who are required to pay tax under 9(5), that is under reverse charge mechanism. We have understood that in the charging provision that who is the person who will require to pay tax under 9(5), like a cab operator. Okay, then we have persons who are doing online restaurant services, the Swiggy and Zomato. These people, they have to register under 9(5). So for them, the threshold limit does not apply. Yes, plumber services and just dial services. These are the people who connect the seller and the buyer. So they will have to take registration immediately. Now, that is clear. Any e-commerce operator will take the registration. Second aspect is a person who supplies goods through these e-commerce operator, they also have to register. Hotel tariff less than 7,500. Yes, that is also correct, Hardik. So e-commerce operator, they will take it. Now, people who are supplying goods through this e-commerce operator, will they have to register? For that, the clarification says that when you're supplying services below 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs, then you can claim exemption. Generally, if you're supplying any goods through an e-commerce operator, you have to take registration. Only then you can sell the goods. Like how you had condition for interstate supply of goods, that if you do any interstate supply of goods, you will not have any threshold. Similarly, if you're making any supply of goods through e-commerce operator, then also you will not have any threshold. However, for supply of services, same like how we had for normal interstate supply of goods, there was exemption. Here also, when you're making any interstate supply of services, you do not have to register even if you're supplying through e-commerce operator. Second, very important is the amendment is threshold limit is available to persons making intra-state supply of goods through e-commerce operator. If you're making any interstate supply of goods, then you will have to take registration. But if you're making intra-state supply of goods through an e-commerce operator, मतलब what are they trying to say? अगर आप किसी ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर को बेच रहे हो और वो सप्लाई किसको कर रहा है, विद इन द स्टेट ही कर रहा है, तो फिर आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. ओके, बट do you think if I supply to Amazon, will I get this exemption? My turnover is 10 lakhs. I'm supplier of goods. Now, if I'm supplying it through Amazon, will I get the exemption? Can I say that up to 20 lakhs? So registration not required. Kambishwar, the example is I am supplier of goods. I am supplying it through Amazon. Now, Amazon will deliver to any customer. So I am the supplier. Receiver can be in any state. So then, will I get this exemption? Can I say that my limit is below 20 lakhs? So I don't have to apply for registration? It can be interstate also. No, but it can be interstate. So if it is interstate, then I will have to take registration. But what is this point saying then? When you read this red highlighted point, it says that where your threshold limit is available to persons making intra-state supply of goods through e-commerce operator. How can you ensure that you're making only intra-state supply and not interstate supply? Because e-commerce will just procure, they will take orders and they will just supply it. So I'm asking you, what is the practical implication of this? See, whenever you read any provision of the law, you have to understand that there will be some practical implication. So what is the practical implication in this case? Right. Ajay Surya has understood this properly. There is something called as a quick commerce, which is coming up very, very hugely. Like if you're using any Zepto, there's an app called Zepto, there is an app called Blinkit. They are quick commerce companies which take the goods from you and deliver in 5 minutes. So it's not possible for them to do any transportation outside the state. They will do transportation within the city itself. So Swiggy, Instamart, yes. So these are all the options where you are registering through these e-commerce operators, then you will still get the benefit of threshold limit because they do not have any supplies to be made interstate. So they will be doing intrastate supply itself. Intrastate supply, goods not registered, service registered. Intrastate supply, goods not registered, service registered. I didn't understand your question, Tambeshwari. In point number one, interstate also allowed. Yes, in this supply of services, interstate is also allowed. Correct. In my example, when I am a vendor, I am having a turnover of 10 lakhs. I am selling some products on quick commerce operator and the supply is happening only intrastate. Then you're right, Preeti. Registration is not required. Okay. Next is, so who are all liable to register? Compulsory registration. Section 23, which says that Section 24, which says that who is liable to compulsory register irrespective of the threshold limit, persons making any interstate supply, non-resident taxable persons, persons who are required to pay tax under reverse charge, persons required to deduct tax, casual taxable persons, ISD, e-commerce operators, and the e-commerce people who are supplying through e-commerce operator. Exception is supply of services and people who are supplying intrastate supply. Persons who are required to collect tax under 52, that is e-commerce operators again, any class of persons which the government may notify, and OIDR, any person who are making interstate supply of goods only. Sir, in case of e-commerce operator, interstate supply of goods, no exemption. And if interstate supply of services, claim exemption up to the threshold limit, and intrastate supply of goods and services, exemption available. Correct. You have put it correctly. Okay. Now, persons who are compulsory required to registration, we understood section 24. Now, there are people who are not liable to be registered. Even if they are making supply crossing the limit, they are not liable to register. Who are they? These lucky people are people who are exclusively in the business of supplying goods or services which is not liable to tax, or supply of wholly exempt goods and services. Okay, people who are exclusively engaged in supplying which is not liable to tax. Maybe it is exempted or it is out of the tax itself. Like person who is supplying alcoholic liquor for human consumption, right? In that GST is not applicable. So without any limit, he can make any supply. He will not be required to be registered under the GST law. Petroleum products, yes, that is also a good example. But petroleum products, you have to be very careful. If these petrol bunks sell any oil, then those oil, lubricating oils or other engine oils, they are not covered under petroleum products. So for that, they may have to take the registration and pay taxes on that. Very few goods or services are exempt. No, Anil, there are quite few services, quite few goods. If you see the exemption list, you'll see that lot of services and lot of goods are there, which is under exemption. And yes, when the supplier is under RCM, when I am a GTA, all my recipient will pay the GST. So it should be the recipient who will pay. In that case also, I do not have to take the registration. Anil, can you please mention your number against your name? Okay. First is like this: exclusively engaged in supply of petroleum, and charitable trust engaged exclusively in charitable activities. But if they engage in any supply of books, then they would cannot get the concession on those books. Agriculturist to the extent of supply of produce out of the cultivation of land, there he is also not required to register. Whenever agriculturist supply only the agriculture products, what he's growing, then he's not required. But say if he has some go down, or if he has some vacant land on which he is collecting, giving it to an organization for commercial purposes and collecting rent, then he will be out, because his limit will be considered total, whatever is exempt from agricultural activities and taxable, both put together. Definition of agriculturist. Who is an agriculturist? Individual or HUF who undertakes cultivation of land by own labor, by the labor of the family, by servant on wages of hired labor under personal supervision or supervision of any member of the family. So you cannot just tell that, okay, you're an agriculturist, so you should get exemption. Agriculturist is one who undertakes the cultivation of land, who should either do it and just cannot outsource it. He should do it from his own labor or by the labor of the family. Any members of the family can contribute, or by servant on wages or hired labor. Okay. So he is an agriculturist. Persons who are not liable to register, continuing that specified persons wherein government can notify. One of them is people who are by way of notification number 5. The government has said that if you're making any supply on which recipient has to pay, so there you do not have to take registration. Then persons making interstate taxable supply of services, which you have understood. Then interstate supply of notified handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs for special category states. Interstate supply of notified products, casual taxable persons, and commission agent. Casual taxable person is under compulsory registration, but here they are saying a casual taxable person who is supplying handicraft goods. For him, exemption will be available. If any person who buys, sell agriculture products but not on agriculturist, so you have to be an agriculturist, otherwise you will not get this exemption for registration. If your product is getting exempted, then you have to search the GST rate for products and identify whether you will get the exemption or not. Mostly for agriculturist item, any produce from agriculture, you will get the exemption, but you cannot use it as a blanket for all the exemptions. सर फर्स्ट पॉइंट का एग्जाम्पल टू रीएक्सप्लेन करना, कौन सा वाला भावना? Example number 2, that is the charitable trust. Okay. So there is a charitable trust who has got a registration under 12AA of the Income Tax Act, and they have got this exemption, and they are doing only charitable activities. So they need not register, correct? Because the section 23 says that person who is not liable to register, उनको registration करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Okay. So they're not liable for registration. But however, if they engage in any supply of books, room space, okay, some rent for the premises, then they cannot get the concession because these are not charitable activities. Supply of books is not charitable activities. So non-charitable activities, when they do and collect some revenue from them, then the threshold limit they have to see and they will have to pay GST on it. Okay. Then persons, this we have understood. GTA example, when he's providing to a private limited company, on which private limited company will pay always on reverse charge basis, then he is not required to register. Okay. Any doubts still here? Again, there's a slide to understand this in much better detail. Person engaged exclusively person engaged exclusively in supplying goods or services which is not liable to tax. Agriculturist, person making only reverse charge supply. Person making interstate supply of services up to 20 lakhs. Persons making interstate supply of handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs. Casual taxable person making interstate supplies to handicraft goods itself. Only for them, the limit will be 20 lakh rupees. Clear till here? Simple, right? Okay. Now moving forward to section 25, which is the procedure for registration. What is the registration procedure? We will understand. Before that, let us see what is the application form. Anybody who wants to register, they have to make an application in form REG01. That is the registration application form. REG01, you have to apply it and you will fill all the details. Once it gets verified, you will get the registration certificate. That is simple, but we'll understand the procedure in detail. Other important terms is what is a UIN holder? Because a UIN holder is granted is a centralized GSUIN and applicable to the whole territory of India. So UIN holders are those United Nations or embassy officers who are in India. They don't make any supply, but they can procure something for their office use. So when they procure something, and how will they claim the refund? So the government has said that if you are a UIN holder, one of those UIN holders, we grant you a centralized UIN number and which will be applicable to the whole of the territory of India. So that whenever you buy something, give the vendor your UIN number, they will charge you GST and we will give refund back. Okay. So that's how the concept of UIN holder runs in. Then next is SEZ. SEZ within the same state has to take separate registration. I'm not making any interstate supply. Then still, why should I take registration when I'm making any supply to SEZ? Any idea? It is the intrastate supply. Then why GST is required? Correct. Deemed as an interstate. So SEZ is treated as a separate territory in its own. Okay. Since it is treated as a separate territory, that's the reason any supply which you make will be liable as IGST transaction itself. So it will always be deemed as an interstate because from other state you're making a supply, it's already interstate. From the same state also when you're making supply, it should be a interstate transaction itself. So that's the reason any supply to SEZ will be a interstate transaction. Now, what about a casual taxable person and a non-registered taxable person? The difference between a casual taxable person and NRTP is a CTP is having no fixed place of business in another state. NRTP is not having any fixed place of business in any of the states. Then CTP needs to register in every state where he wants to do business. Similarly, NRTP also has to take registration in every state where he wants to make a supply. The common points for them is both CTP and NRTP cannot go under composition levy. They'll have to go under regular levy itself. And no centralized scheme is available for both, saying that, okay, we'll use only one registration for across India, not possible. UIN full form Hardik is unique identification number. So UIN is unique identification number. That is the difference between CTP, NRTP, and UIN holder and a SEZ unit. What is the timeline for application? You have to make an application from the 30 days from the date when you become liable for registration. You have the limit once you cross the threshold limit, within 30 days आपको registration करना पड़ेगा. And for a casual taxable person, he is coming, doing some business over here and going back. So I don't know whether if I give him register from the officer's perspective, officer will tell, I don't know if I give him registration, will he continue or no? Okay. So that's why, because unlike now, like a normal registration, this registration is different because this person will be here for temporary reasons and he'll go off. So that's the reason a CTP or a NRTP will have to take registration prior to commencement of the business. So before he starts his business, come here, get the registration done, and then do your business. No problem. So for them, some kind of deposit also has to be collected. So they have to apply 5 days before the commencement of their business. Okay. So that's how a CTP registration happens. They'll have to apply for it in advance. Komal, which previous slide you couldn't find? This one, yes. So this is a culmination from other chapters. Based on that, I have given the pointers over here. You can use the PPT, no problem. SEZ full form, Special Economic Zone. Okay, SEZ का मतलब है Special Economic Zone. When you are making any supply to SEZ, it is always treated as a export. One registration per state, no centralized registration, and then option to obtain independent registration. We know that within a state, if you have multiple branches, multiple regions, you can have separate registration. That is also permitted. Studios and company like Voxel, which makes graphic and all, they need to take registration before the commencement. Do they come to India and do some business, or they're actually having a subsidiary here? You'll have to see that, Preeti, is that they're coming here for temporary purpose, because a CTP and NRTP registration has a validity of only 90 days. After that, you will have to renew it, right? Unlike our normal registration where you don't have to renew it. Once you've taken a registration, it's lifetime permanent for you, right? But in case of VAT, there's no such timeline. Okay, so you have to understand whether this foreign person, NRTP, who is coming to India, is he doing it for temporary purpose or a permanent purpose? What is PPOB and APOB? PPOB means principal place of business and APOB means additional place of business. So he has to be, when you take one registration for multiple branches in the state, then you have to mention your principal place of business and additional place of business. Option to obtain independent registration, that is of course there, whether you can take single registration or you can take separate registration for each of your branches. Okay, what are the other aspects in terms of registration is voluntary registration. The registration which is given, you don't have to compulsory register. If you're crossing the limit or before you're crossing the limit also, you want to take registration, you're most welcome. Distinct person, very important for registration purpose. We have understood that at various parts, but here it has to be discussed because this is a crucial point for registrations, where you have registration in one state and establishment in another state. Then PAN is compulsory, and even for a casual taxable person under section 51 can apply through the PAN number. So if you have registration in one state and registration in another state, then compulsorily you have to take. Okay. The PAN becomes compulsory. Unique identification number, they may not have PAN. For them, only for claiming refund, they're applying for the registration. Centralized UIN for all operators in India and issue UIN number within 3 working days is the normal time limit when a UIN holder will get his registration. Then Suo-moto registration. Say you have crossed your limit, you have not paid your taxes, the officer has come for inspection and found that you have not registered, but you're doing a lot of transactions. So then he will take all your on records and then he will tell you. Okay. So in case of Suo-moto registration, where you are not doing the registration, the officer has come to know that you are doing some businesses, then he will do Suo-moto registration. Suo-moto मतलब अपने आप जो ऑफिसर है वो आपको registration दे देगा. Once he gives you the registration, first आपको temporary registration मिलेगा. Submit an application within 30 days from receipt of this TRN. What is TRN? Temporary registration number. So first itself, officer cannot give you all that because he does not have the details. He will tell you to give the details, but you are not giving him, you're not cooperating with him. So he will give a temporary registration number. Using that, within 90 days, you have to upload all your details. Like how we get at the time of registration some number that is called as TRN number. That TRN, instead of we generating, officer generates it. He will give it to you. Then make an application within 90 days. Give all your details, bank details, your business, company name, everything, and you will get a TRN. Then file an appeal against this TRN. If it is rejected, then apply for registration because you said that no, the officer is forcefully giving me the registration. I am not liable to register, but still he's giving me. If you can contend, then you can contend it against this TRN number. Once you apply it, then the procedure will go on. But if you say no, officer says and proves it that you have actually done business, then your appeal will get rejected and you will continue to be a registered person. Okay. The procedure for registration for normal registration is separate and special procedure is there for other category of people. Normal people will be all taxable persons, casual taxable person, voluntary registration or composition registration, what you're doing. For them, the form which you have to file is form REG01. That is the form which we will apply online. Okay. Then special procedure is there for a non-resident taxable person, TDS holder, TCS deductor, OIDAR, person supplying any online gaming. This is a new addition. Special procedure and GST REG1 is not available for a person who is supplying online money gaming from a place outside India to a person in India. Okay. Then a SEZ unit is a special economic zone unit or a developer. They will have to take separate registration. In the state of Karnataka, I am having a registration. Now, in Mangalore, which is also a city in the same state, I have SEZ unit. Both are within the same state. So should I take 2 registration or 1 registration is sufficient? I have to take 2 registration. Correct. So even though it is within the state, a unit in a SEZ will have to take a separate registration. Okay. Now, what is the procedure for registration? Till here, it is same. After this, it is changed. Till here, we will understand. First, how do you apply for registration? You have to go to the GST portal. Okay. Go to the GST portal. From there, you will file a form called registration, that is in Reg 01 Part A. Input your PAN details, mobile number, and email ID. All of this will get verified. How will PAN be verified? PAN will be verified from the income tax database. Then mobile number will be verified through an OTP, and email number is also filed through an OTP. So this is a starting of the process. You have to give your details, get it verified. Then once the documents are submitted, are basic three details: PAN number, phone number, email ID. PAN will get verified with the income tax database. Email ID will get verified by sending an OTP, and mobile number also will get verified by giving an OTP. Right? Once this three is available, then a application reference number is generated. आपका application process होते ही आपको एक ARN number, application reference number, gets generated, and then from there onwards you will fill Part B. Part B has various other details: your bank details, your branch details, what are the goods you're dealing, who are the partners, who is the proprietor, who is the director. All of those details we will mention in Part B. Okay, so from your end, you're completed. You have done the first step in Part A, and then you've done the second step in Part B. What happens after that? After that, it goes to the officer. Now, what will the officer do? He will do two things. Either he can reject it or he will accept it. If the proper officer who is examining the application, okay, and accompanying documents, he will see that. And if he says that everything is in order, all your documents are correct, nothing to worry. Okay, if he says that, then yes. If he's saying yes, then registration will be granted within 7 working days from the date of application. Within 7 days, he will give you the registration certificate, provided there is a requirement of Aadhaar authentication. If you are having, you should be having an Aadhaar number. If you're a resident in India, you should be giving your Aadhaar number. Now you have to validate your Aadhaar with the GST department. If you're validating your Aadhaar, then within 7 days, your registration will come. But where applicant fails to undergo Aadhaar authentication, his authentication is failed for whatever reason, could be name mismatch, could be because of any other reason that his Aadhaar is not getting authenticated, then what will happen? The person who has undergone Aadhaar authentication is identified on the common portal based on data analysis and risk parameters to carry out the site verification. Then registration will be granted within 30 days of application after verification of site and prescribed documents, which means where I am taking registration, that premises, I will have to give it to the officer for his inspection. So when the officer will come for inspection, why? Because my Aadhaar is not authenticated. Since my Aadhaar is not authenticated, it will have to get authenticated by the officer, because he has to prove that yes, this person exists. If Aadhaar is authenticated, then at least there is some proof. Because if you have to change your Aadhaar number, address, you have to go to the Aadhaar center every time. Correct? So you're like physically existing. The main reason of this registration is to check whether you're physically existing or not. Because there are a lot of things happening in terms of fake invoicing. Person raises the invoice, but he's not paying GST. He claims the input tax credit, claims refund, then he runs away. That's why these people need to get tracked. That's the reason, officer, the system is that you apply for Aadhaar authentication, get the registration certificate within 7 days. If you're not getting authenticated, then the officer will have to come to your premises and verify it, and then you will get the registration within 30 days time. Okay. If the documents itself are not correct, okay, if the documents itself are not correct, then the proper officer will issue a notice and he will ask for some clarification. If you give all the clarifications correctly, then within 7 working days, the application will be the submitted date. Okay. and within 30 days of application submission, so there is some clarification and you have submitted it. So within 30 days, he will give you the registration. So two cases, 7 days and 30 days. 7 days is when you're authenticated, 30 days in other cases. And where your application is not proper with all the supporting documents, then the officer will give you a notice and within 30 days, he will issue the registration certificate. If the applicant has furnished the clarification within 7 days from the receipt of notice, then he will grant you the registration within 7 working days. Clear? Deemed approval of registration. What happens in case of A, B, and C? What you have seen is, if you are authenticated, if the person who successfully undergoes authentication of Aadhaar or is exempt from Aadhaar authentication, who is exempted, we'll see. So for them, the registration will come within 7 working days. And in case where the person fails to undergo Aadhaar authentication, then within a period of 30 working days. In case where the proper officer issues notice seeking clarification, then within 7 working days of getting the clarification from the person. Aadhaar authentication, for whom it is mandatory, a person who is citizen of India should do the Aadhaar, take the Aadhaar number, and Aadhaar authentication is mandatory. Or authorized signatory of all types, managing and authorized partners, and Karta of a firm. These people will have to get the Aadhaar authentication. So if I am a company, I am a private limited company, and I am applied for registration number. So will I get the registration or should I get somebody's Aadhaar authentication done? Come on. There's a private limited company. Now, can I get the Aadhaar number for a company? Is it possible? Not possible. Correct? I cannot get the Aadhaar of the company. You can get PAN number of the company. Okay, I will get the PAN number of the company. So in that case, whose Aadhaar number will get authenticated? Company will not have PAN. Correct. You will have to get the Aadhaar number of the director, that is the managing partner or a managing director. His Aadhaar has to get authenticated. Okay. So any artificial form of company or artificial person who is not having its own existence, but there are persons behind it. Like for a partnership firm, they may not have a Aadhaar, but the partners will have. So the partner will have to go. A manager will have to go. A managing director will have to go. And in case of a LLP, a managing partner will have to go and get his Aadhaar authentication done. Once that is authenticated, then you will get the registration. I said that there are some people who are exempted. Who are they? A person who is not a citizen of India, because he will not be required to take registration. When will we use authorized signatory? For Aadhaar authentication, we cannot use an authorized signatory. When we will use an authorized signatory, we will use an authorized signatory when this main person is not there. So in a registration, you can mention the name of the managing directors and a authorized signatory, because some documents which you issue under GST, the managing director is not there, so you need an alternative. So in such cases, you will use the details of a authorized signatory. But for Aadhaar authentication, you cannot get a authorized signatory's Aadhaar authenticated. You have to get the director's Aadhaar only authenticated. Okay. Now, Aadhaar authentication is exempted in the following cases: when the person is not a citizen of India, if the person who is want to taking a registration He is a department or establishment of the SG or CG. What is SG or CG? We have spoken on this. Correct, Hardik, Riddhi, Kavita, Vismita. Where are others? What is the meaning of SG and CG? Correct, Riddhi, Kushi, Abhishek, Kasak, Tambeshwari. Yes. CGST and CG and SG means central government or state government. Authorized signatory, any example? Like there is a private limited company, there are two directors. Now, these directors are not Indian directors, or at least one director has to be there. So, one Indian director is there, one foreign director is there. Now, this Indian director does lot of travel. So, they have appointed a person, say a manager of the company or the CEO of the company, who will be treated as the authorized signatory. So when you apply for registration, you can give his details saying that he is one of the person who is the authorized signatory for the purpose of GST. So he will be approved through a board resolution. For in case of a company, he is a person who is called as a authorized signatory. Ah, what are the other people who are getting exempted? Department or establishment of central government or state government, local authorities, statutory bodies, public sector undertaking, or a person who is applying for UIN. So these are the people for whom Aadhaar authentication is exempted. They do not have to do a Aadhaar authentication. So mostly government bodies, non-person who is not a citizen, and UIN holder. Risk-based Aadhaar authentication, saying that registration has introduced a new biometric-based Aadhaar authentication, saying that just Aadhaar authentication online is not sufficient. You have to do a biometric-based. You have to go to a Aadhaar center, give your thumb, and get this authentication done. So this is only there. Initially, it was there only in the state of Gujarat. From Gujarat, it is extending to Puducherry and Andhra Pradesh. Slowly, all the states will have this. But for your exams, relevant will be Puducherry, Andhra Pradesh, and Gujarat. As and when we get some any more notification that will get added. But as of today, it is only Gujarat, Puducherry, and Andhra Pradesh. What is the statutory body? Kavita, statutory body is one who, like RBI, SEBI, these are all statutory bodies who are not actually government, who are not private organizations. They are bodies who control certain kind of organizations. They are called as statutory bodies. Principal place of business, whether it has to be done in physical mode or online mode, it has to be done in physical mode. That is the next point, Arun. Once an application has been filed and the applicant has opted for authentication, it shall be followed by biometric based Aadhaar authentication and taking photograph. They have to take photograph of the applicant, of the authorized person, and the process shall happen at the notified facilitation center. So once this is done, then what will happen? Acknowledgement will be issued and your registration will get completed. Now, there is a requirement that the officer has to come for inspection. When he comes for inspection, then this process will get completed. And it has to be done in a physical mode itself. So, proprietor who will be getting whose Aadhaar will get authorized? Of course, proprietor is a single person, his Aadhaar itself. In case of a partnership firm, that of the partners. In case of a HUF, that of a Karta. In case of a company, the directors, foreign company, authorized signatory, or the authorized person in charge in India. Because for a foreign company, you cannot tell you need to have an Indian, but they can appoint an authorized person in India if they want to take registration in India. Then in case of a LLP, the designated partners. In case of a society, club, trust, members, and in any other cases, the person who is in charge. People who are already registered, what they have to do? People who are already biometric authentication optional? No, it's not optional. It is compulsory, but compulsory only in these three states: Abhishek, Puducherry, Gujarat, and Andhra Pradesh. These states it is compulsory. Other states it's optional. If Aadhaar authentication you don't carry on, what will be the problem? You cannot file an application for revocation of cancellation. There is something called as cancellation of registration. If the officer cancels it, you can revoke it back. You can request to stop the cancellation. That is called revocation of cancellation. If you are Aadhaar authenticated, only then you can do it. And only if you are Aadhaar authenticated, then you can file your refund application. And refund of IGST paid on exports. So basically all refunds, before filing any all refunds, you have to get your Aadhaar authenticated. So what is the GST registration process again, if I explain you in different way, first is Aadhaar authentication. If you have done your Aadhaar authentication, then within 7 days, you'll get your registration. If you fail, then the officer will conduct the physical verification and within 30 days. Now, this important aspect, like somebody was asking, what will happen during physical verification? They will do the physical verification earlier. The requirement was it should be done in presence of the said person. Matlab, if he comes for registration, that time managing director has to be there. When he comes for registration, the proprietor has to be there. But if he used to come and the proprietor was gone outside, then that physical verification was not happening. So that hardship has been reduced. Now they've removed this aspect of presence of the said person, which means once he comes for registration, whether that person is there or not there, the premises is there, you have to do physical verification of the premises. That's your primary reason. Please do the verification of premises. That is what this has been clarifying now, that when they come for physical verification, the presence of the person is not required. The presence of the place is required. He will take the photograph, the latitude, longitude, and officer can go. So what a relief. Because when he comes, when he will not come, the authorized signatory will have to sit and wait for him. So that is gone away with. Now he can come to the verification and go. If the PO fails to issue the registration within 30 days, this physical verification happens when the Aadhaar authentication is failed or when you are applying for registration without Aadhaar number. In both these cases, physical verification will be required. Okay. Now, people who are already registered, provided if Aadhaar number has been assigned, required to undergo authentication, such person shall furnish the following identification: is Aadhaar enrollment slip and bank copy. These things he will provided for a person who is already registered. Will it be fair if authorized person presence is mandatory? No, anybody can be there, not authorized signatory. It can be anybody else. Clear till your Aadhaar authentication part? Next is your bank account details. When you apply for registration, you are supposed to have a bank account details. If you have it, submit it. But if you do not have, then what happens? You're saying that my bank, I've applied it, I have not yet got it. Once you give me GST registration, then the bank is asking for a copy. So you give me the first GST registration. But GST registration says, give me the bank details. So then there is a catch situation that you cannot proceed with either of them. So the GST portal now says that if it is not available, your bank account is not available at the time of application, then don't worry. It can be submitted within 30 days. Earlier it was 45 days. Now it's come down to 30 days. Submitted within 30 days from the date of grant of this registration, once you get the registration certificate, or before furnishing the details of your outward supply. So two amendments which was important here is earlier 45 days, now it's reduced to 30 days. Earlier, Another important aspect is before filing your GSTR 3B, you have to give your bank account details. Now they said, no, don't wait for your GSTR 3B returns. You file your GSTR 1 return. Before that, you give this thing. So before filing your GSTR 1 return, you have to submit this. Okay. Earlier, it was returns. Now it is furnishing of details. Furnishing of details happens through GSTR 1. So before furnishing of GSTR 1, you have to give your bank details. Otherwise, your filing of GSTR 1 will not be permitted. Fine. Then, but for TDS deductor or TCS collector, bank account has to be mandatorily given at the time of application. For TDS and TCS person, he will have to give the registration mandatory. For goods like rice bran, fodders for livestock are exempted. Yeah, what is the connection here with that, Arun? GSTR 1 नॉट अंडरस्टूड. तंबेश्वरी, मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि पहले क्या था, आपको बैंक अकाउंट डिटेल्स रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम देने की जरूरत नहीं थी, लेकिन आपको GSTR 3B जो आप फाइनल रिटर्न मंथली फाइल करते हो, उसको फाइल करने के पहले आपको बैंक डिटेल्स देना था. अगर आप बैंक डिटेल्स नहीं देते तो आपको वो रिटर्न फाइल नहीं कर सकते थे. तो लोग क्या करते थे, सिर्फ GSTR 1 फाइल करते थे, लेकिन GSTR 3B फाइल नहीं करते थे. एक GSTR 1 का बड़ा अमाउंट डाल दिया, GSTR 3B फाइल नहीं किया, भाग जाते थे. तो इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ने उसके ऊपर भी रोक लगा दी कि आपको बैंक अकाउंट रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम देने की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन आपको बाद में तो देना पड़ेगा. तो बाद का टाइम कब है, जब आप GSTR 1 फाइल करते हो, तब उसके पहले आप बैंक अकाउंट डिटेल्स दे दीजिए, वरना आपका GSTR 1 भी फाइल नहीं हो पाएगा. ठीक है, तो ये बोल रहा है अमेंडमेंट इन दिस सेक्शन. And second is a TDS deductor or TCS collector. जो TDS और TCS जमा करते हैं, उनको तो बैंक अकाउंट रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम ही देना पड़ेगा. they cannot wait till they file the returns. इनको तो immediately देना पड़ेगा. That's the only exception. System-based suspension of registration will happen if you do not give the bank account details. Okay. If you don't give your bank account details on a timely manner, then your account will get suspended and automatic revocation once it is getting submitted. So your registration will get cancelled and you have to apply for revocation. TDS deductor, explain in English. Yes, TDS deductor means a person who is deducting TDS. जैसे गवर्नमेंट को आप सप्लाई करते हो और गवर्नमेंट को TDS डिडक्ट करना है. जब भी आप गुड सप्लाई करते हो गवर्नमेंट को, गवर्नमेंट TDS डिडक्ट करेगा. और TCS जो आप ई कॉमर्स को सप्लाई करते हो, वो TCS करेगा. तो इन दोनों लोगों को जब रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए अप्लाई करते हैं, उनको बैंक डिटेल्स रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम ही देना पड़ेगा, इज द कंडीशन. बाकी सब लोगों को क्या है, रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम बैंक डिटेल्स देने की जरूरत नहीं है, बाद में भी. ठीक है. So physical verification क्या है? PO is satisfied that the physical verification is required after registration. कि उसने registration दे दिया है. Now he's feeling that नहीं मुझे physical verification करना है तो वो कर सकता है. Where physical verification is required before grant of registration या physical verification is required after the grant of registration. अगर बाद में करना है तो proper officer, when we say PO in GST, PO का मतलब हो जाएगा proper officer. सभी ऑफिसर को हम क्या कहेंगे? प्रॉपर ऑफिसर. सो प्रॉपर ऑफिसर शैल अपलोड द फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन रिपोर्ट विथ डॉक्यूमेंट्स एंड फोटोग्राफ्स विद इन 15 वर्किंग डेज फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ वेरिफिकेशन. कि उसको तो 30 डेज में हमको रजिस्ट्रेशन देना है, लेकिन इंटरनल उसका टाइमलाइन है कि उसको फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन रिपोर्ट जमा करनी है. कब? विद इन 15 वर्किंग डेज फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ वेरिफिकेशन. ऐसा नहीं कि वेरिफिकेशन करके छोड़ दिया हो. करेक्ट? तो फिर आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं मिलेगा. सो देयर इज अ इंटरनल टाइमलाइन विच सेज दैट उसने वेरिफिकेशन कर दिया है तो उसे विद इन 30 डेज वेरिफिकेशन रिपोर्ट अपलोड करना है. और जब उसको रजिस्ट्रेशन के पहले फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन करना है, वेयर आई हैव नॉट डन द, कब करेगा ये सेकेंड पार्ट? बिफोर ग्रांट ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन वेरिफिकेशन कब करेगा ऑफिसर? Max नहीं है प्रीति, minimum is 2 lakh rupees. If you are making any supply above 2 lakh rupees, then the government will have to deduct TDS. Correct. Correct. Hardika Napur. When you are not getting your Aadhaar authentication, yes, correct. When you are not getting your Aadhaar authentication, then physical have a timeline of just 30 days. So PO shall upload the physical verification report with documents, photographs within 5 working days prior to completion of time period of registration. Matlab, you have, once you apply within 30 days, they have to give you registration. So 5 days before that. So 25 days from the date of your application, the physical verification report has to be given by the proper officer. Okay. So in such cases, proper officer has to do the verification 5 days before that due date. Clear till here? Now, what is the effective date of registration? You have applied for registration. Immediately you will not get it. You will get it after some point of time. So what is the effective date of registration? How can I find the PV report? Bhaskar, very good. We cannot find the physical verification report. It's an internal report. You have to apply for it. Officer will do the verification, but he will intimate you. He will contact you because when you upload it, your mobile number is getting authenticated. So I will contact you and come for the verification. So you will not get it. Internally, the officer will get it. Officer will upload it. He'll tell okay, and he will proceed with your registration. Now, I have applied for registration today. Officer is giving at the 30th day. So my registration is from 30th day or today. To avoid this confusion, the provision says that if you apply for registration on a timely manner, what is a timely manner? If you have applied for a registration on crossing the threshold limit, okay, then you have applied within 30 days of this crossing the limit. If you have applied on time means if you have applied within 30 days. So आपको cross हो रहा है on 30th November. So if you have applied by 30th December, then by 30th January, you may get the registration. Correct? So if you have applied within 30 days when you are liable for registration, once you cross the threshold limit, आपका threshold limit cross हो गया है और आपने registration के लिए apply किया है. If you have applied on time, then the date on which you become liable for registration, in your registration application, you have a date from the which will ask you what is the date from when you are becoming liable for registration. So if you say 30th November, then and you're applying by the 30th December, then the registration will be effective from 30th November. Okay. And if you are applying for registration late, that is after 30 days, then the effective date of registration will not be the date of your application. It will be the date when the officer grants the registration certificate. Because उसमें तो आपने टाइम पे किया ही नहीं. If you are following proper timeline, then you will get your registration from that date. If you are applying late, then you will not get the benefit. Have a huge impact, no? I have crossed the limit and applied for registration and have purchased some things. I cannot get the input tax credit on those because my date of registration will be future date if I applied late. So that's why it is very important that you apply for registration on a timely manner. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll mention few dates over here. You tell me what will be the date of registration. Application registration application submission date. Okay. Then you tell me effective date of okay. So I leave you with this question. Come up with answers. We'll discuss on the answers after a break. So we'll take a break of 10 minutes and come back on this. Okay, so in the first three cases, so what everybody is here saying is cross the threshold limit on 1st February. So the answer for the first point is there's no option. What is the actual date of registration? So in first case, 1st February can't be 1st February because 30th February doesn't exist. So this first question is a sham. Okay, 30th February you cannot apply for registration because 30th February doesn't exist. Right? Everybody's first pointed that out correctly. Second case, it is 18th February, which you have applied within time. So it is effective date of registration is 1st February 2024. In second case, it is 18th March, wherein you have applied after the due date, right? After 30 days. So it will be 18th March 2024. And in third case, it will be 1st February 2024 itself, because you have applied it on the same day. I think everybody is in line. फर्स्ट केस रिद्धि क्या बोल रहा हूं मैं 30th February. February is a leap month, right? So you have only 28 days. So how can you have 30th in February? On February you have 28 and maximum 29 days. 30th तो हो ही नहीं सकता है. But if date of submission is 1st March, then 1st February. 30 days will be on the correct. If it is 1st March, then it will be 1st February itself. Second is 1st February. Third is 18th. Third is date of grant of registration. Yes. And fourth is 1st February. Yes. Correct. If I've submitted late, yes, here it will be the date of grant of registration. So in this case, I've not mentioned the date of grant of registration. So when I submit, then he will take verification. Correct. You're right. So if he says gives the grant it after 10 days. So if he grants it on 28th, then 28th will be the effective date of registration. You're right, Abhishek. Yes, Hardik. So this is what I mentioned is the registration application date. So when we have said here that after 30 days from the date of registration, date of grant of registration. So when does the officer grant? So in my case, I have not mentioned the date of grant of registration. So assume he's giving it after 10 days of your application. He's granting it on the 28th, then the effective date of registration will be 28th and not 18th, because it will always, if you're applying it after 30 days, it will not go back to the date of my application. It will be the date of grant of registration. Correct? After verification, yes. It can be after or before itself, because if I've applied, he has to give me within compulsory 7 days. Yes, that becomes a point. But if he does verification, then you're right, 28th March. Chalo. So now our registration concept is clear. You apply within the time limit, then the effective date of registration when you have applied, that will be the thing. If you apply it later on, it will not go back to the date of your application. It will go to the date of grant of registration when the officer is granting that date. And if you are verified, authenticated your Aadhaar, then within 7 days of your application. If you are not authenticated your Aadhaar, then within 30 days. Okay. Proceeding further, how does your GST number look? This is the general information that you will have a 15-digit number for your GST registration. First two digit is your state code, followed by your PAN number. Third code is a unique number for the same PAN in the state. So if you have 8 registrations in a state, so one will be the first registration, two will be the third, then three will be the third, and like that it will continue. Z will be a alphabet which will be by default, which the system will give up, and 5 is a check digit number. So basically 15-digit number from the third to the 12th will be your PAN number. So seeing the GST registration number itself, you can get the PAN number as well. Casual taxable person, we know this, but just as a reference, a person who occasionally undertakes transactions involving supply of goods or services in the course of business in a state where he has no fixed place of business. He is not having a fixed place of business, is going to another place and taking registration. That is called as a casual taxable person who is not taking registration where he is. He is already having a registration in the state, but the place of supply is another state. He's going there and selling. Unlike other case where we said that from Bangalore, if somebody is supplying to Mumbai, so the location of supplier is Bangalore. He need not take a casual taxable registration. He need not take a separate registration for the Mumbai state. Correct? But when he goes to that place and sells there, he is selling at that location. That's where he will have to take a registration in that location. So he can take a proper registration, or he can take a CTP registration, which is a casual taxable person's registration. Fine. Then similar to CTP, where he's having registration in this state, but he is not having registration in another state, he will take a casual taxable person registration. A non-resident taxable person is one who is not having any presence in India. He's coming to India for doing business and he is selling some goods and going off. Of course, this both the cases, it is occasional. So wherein they're not doing the transaction on a continuous basis. If they do on a continuous basis, then they will not get this temporary registration. This CTP and NRTP is a kind of a temporary registration, which is not a permanent registration. It is for a short duration, which we will see now, for what duration you will get. But if you are doing it for a continuous basis, then you don't have to apply for this. You have to apply for normal registration. What is this? This is a comparison chart and the requirements between a CTP and NRTP. A CTP has no fixed place of business in the state
of products
from
that
here,
people are
from where he
imbibing,
wants to
as
undertake
well
the
as the
supply.
form of
He is registered in one state. From that other state, he is not registered, so he is opting for registration there. But a NRTP is not having a place of business in India at all. Okay, a CTP may be registered in a state, in some other state, or he may not be. But NRTP is always not registered in any other state. A CTP needs to be registered in that state from where he wants to do business. Say, I am a jewelry dealer. I am selling goods here. Now there is an exhibition in the Northeast. In Assam, there is an exhibition. I want to go to Assam and sell my goods. So since I'm going there and supplying, I cannot give Bangalore's GST number because the supply is happening from there. I have to take registration over there and then sell it. So for that purpose, for that exhibition, I have to take a registration called as a CTP registration. Okay. The next is NRTP. NRTP needs to register in the state from where he makes the supply. In case of CTP, PAN is compulsory. In case of NRTP, he is a non-resident, so PAN will not be required. Passport will be required and business entity will be required. Just one moment. So PAN is compulsory for a CTP, for an NRTP. Passport and business identity number is required. The registration process for a CTP is normal registration process. You will apply for REG01, but NRTP, the registration form is separate. You will apply in GST REG09. CTP will be duly verified by the registered person, and NRTP will be duly verified through EVC through an authorized signatory who should be a resident person. Because a non-resident, how will you track him? So he has to appoint an agent or an authorized signatory, and his details will be verified. What are the common points between CTP and NRTP? They cannot opt to pay tax under composition levy. कि मैंने तो एग्जीबिशन करना है और मेरा टर्नओवर 1.5 करोड़ क्रॉस नहीं होगा. एग्जीबिशन में कितना तो सेल होगा, 10 लाख 20 लाख होगा. सो आई विल ऑप्ट फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन. एनआरटीपी भी यही सोचेगा, लेकिन सीटीपी एंड एनआरटीपी दीज पीपल कैन नॉट ऑप्ट फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन. वो सीधा बार है, यू कैन नॉट ऑप्ट फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन. Clear with this? आप ये ध्यान से रखते हैं. This will be a tricky question which may come up because you'll be carried away with the limits of a casual taxable of a composition dealer. ओके, तो फिर क्या मुझे मिल जाएगा एज अ कॉम्पोजिशन का बेनिफिट? नहीं मिलेगा. You will not get the benefit of a composition dealer there. Okay. What is EVC? EVC is electronic verification code is a EVC. You can be duly signed through online. जब आप फाइल करते हो तब you have an option called EVC, electronic verification code, जो मोबाइल नंबर पे आता है उसे कहते हैं EVC. So first common point for both is both cannot opt for composition scheme. आपको normal यही लेना पड़ेगा. No centralized scheme. Each state में आपको separate registration लेना पड़ेगा. Threshold limit does not apply. Exception will be handicraft and craftsman की. मैं वहां पे तो turnover करूंगा 10 lakhs. So registration limit is 20 lakhs. I will not require. So CTP and NRTP के लिए we have said there is no threshold limit. Any business you do, you have to take the registration itself. Advance deposit of the estimate tax liability has to be made. That's why you have to take the registration in advance, pay the taxes in advance. You have to project saying that, okay, my estimation is I will do turnover of 20 lakhs. On that, 18% is the rate on my product. That tax you have to pay in advance. And once you finish your exhibition, you come out of it. When you go for cancellation, the balance will be applied for a refund. Okay. And when you should apply for a registration as a CTP or NRTP, at least 5 days in advance before the commencement of the business. 5 days before the commencement of the business, you have to apply for the registration both as a CTP or NRTP. Input tax credit मिलेगा, CTP को credit मिलेगा, NRTP को credit नहीं मिलेगा. In input tax credit also we have discussed, a CTP will get the input tax credit. NRTP will not get the input tax credit. He will get credit only on the goods what he is importing. Locally, whatever he is procuring, he will not get the benefit. He will not get the credit of that. Validity of registration. एक बार registration मिल गया तो कितने दिन तक validity है? Either the period specified in the registration application or 90 days from the date of registration, and it can get extended to a further period of 90 days. अगर आप बोल नहीं रहे हो कि नहीं मुझे 90 days का नहीं चाहिए, मेरा एग्जीबिशन ही 5 दिन का है, तो ठीक है, आप 10 दिन का registration ले लीजिए और registration period will be for 10 days. But if it is not mentioned any validity, then by default the validity will be 90 days. And which can get extended कि आप एक extension ले लो कि मुझे बहुत थोड़े दिन के लिए चाहिए, मेरा exhibition लंबा हो गया, or my stall what I put at one place, it is temporary but I'm seeing some more business, so you extend it, then you can extend it by another 90 days. So 90 plus 90, maximum 180 days you can get the validity of this registration. ठीक है. Now amendments to the registration. What is amendment? You have applied for registration. Now some changes is required. Your director has changed. Your authorized signatory has changed. Your bank account is changed. Your email ID is changed. But if your PAN is changed, will you call it as amendment? Can I do amendment of change in PAN? So you apply for amendment in PAN. When will your PAN get amended, Preeti? Give an example. Archana, you can also tell. You have also told yes. When will your PAN change? The PAN gets stolen. Okay, if the PAN gets stolen, so will you apply for a new PAN with the same number or a different number? Your PAN is a unique number. Okay, you even if it is lost or stolen, you can apply for a duplicate PAN, but you have to mention your old PAN and get the same number. Okay, you cannot get a new PAN. Even if your name changes, Archana, in your case, or date of birth change, say your date of birth is printed wrongly, you have to correct it. Your PAN number doesn't get changed. Each person is allowed to get only one PAN number. Okay, so same PAN number you have to use. Now, if a company, I will tell you when a PAN can get changed. When a company is there, it has got taken over by some other company, so its PAN has got changed. So that is not an amendment, that is change of the person itself, because that's takeover which has happened. So then you have to cancel your old registration and take new registration. Okay. So in case of an individual, you will always have one PAN. In case of a company, say a company has got converted into a limited liability partnership, or a partnership firm is got converted to a private limited company, then you will get a new PAN. So that is not a amendment, that is cancellation of the old entity and obtaining a new entity. In case of death of PAN holder, yes, in case of death of a PAN holder, his legal heirs will continue, or any other person will buy over the business. In case of a death of a PAN holder, the business stops. Unless a new person is coming, the legal heir will have a new registration with his PAN, and this business will get transferred there. Okay. So what other amendments we can do except PAN? All other amendments we can do. In case of core fields, there are two fields which have been defined. One is core fields, one is non-core fields. For core fields, you need approval of the proper officer. And for non-core fields, you don't need approval of the proper officer. What are core fields? Name of the business, addition of stakeholders, principal place of business. Any of these address change is called as core fields. It will require the approval of the proper officer. But for non-core fields, which is simple things like email ID, mobile numbers, etc., their approval of the officer is not required, because आपका email ID change हो गया है. Give the new email ID, get it authenticated to an OTP, done. What will the proper officer do? He will not do anything. Mobile number is changed, give your new mobile number, it will get done. So that is called as non-core fields. Core fields are one which requires that the officer checks it and approve it. That's why it's called as approval scheme, wherein your core fields will get checked by the officer and then he will approve it. Clear? Now, how do you do the amendment for change of PAN? Fresh registration, as I had said. So change of PAN is a new registration, can't do it through an amendment. But any other changes, name of the business, address, addition of details, etc., apply through an amendment called as GST REG 14. GST officer is happy with it, then he will give you the REG 15, that is the amended registration. If he is not happy, needs some clarification, he will give you Form REG 03. asking for clarifications. Your applicant give the details within 7 days, apply the reply to REG03 in the REG04. Okay. Then GST officer, if there is no response, then the change is amended. Or if he rejects it, then he will give a REG05 saying that your old details only will continue, your amendment will not apply. So he will give you a final order in REG05 if he rejects it. Clear? Simple process of amendment. Then cancellation for registration. When can I go for cancellation? I can cancel the registration myself. That is called as cancellation by the taxpayer when my turnover falls below. I've been doing registration. Once I register, even if I fall below the turnover threshold limit, I have to pay the taxes. This is not happening. My business also is not growing. Every year it is going less. I want to cancel. So I can apply for cancellation. Or in other cases, that is, I'm death of the proprietor, closure of the business, takeover of the business, any other cases, I can cancel it myself. So when the taxpayer threshold is less than 20 lakhs or threshold any limit, or in other cases, he can cancel it. That is by the taxpayer. Or the officer can cancel it when he is seeing that you are doing some violation. He can cancel it, or cancellation by legal heirs in case of death of the taxpayer. So in case of a death of a taxpayer, he is not existing. He cannot apply for cancellation. His legal heirs will apply for cancellation. Okay. Then cancellation by a registered person on its own or by the department. When the business is discontinued or when it is transferred fully for any reason. So these are the cases where the cancellation by a registered person on his own can happen. When it is amalgamated, demerged, when there is a change of business, he will apply for cancellation. When there is change in the constitution of the business, also you can apply for cancellation. Or the tax person is no longer liable. In these cases, the taxpayer will voluntarily apply for cancellation. Now, cancellation by proper officer. When the officer can apply for cancellation when he does not conduct the business from the declared place of business. He's taken a registration, but when the officer has come for inspection, he is not there. Officer can cancel the registration. Invoices issued without supply of goods. So all these violation cases when he is issuing invoice but not supplying goods. Then he's paying tax under composition scheme but failed to furnish the GST returns beyond 3 months from the due date. A composition taxpayer has to file yearly one return. Now that return also is delayed beyond 3 months. Cancellation. A normal tax payable fails to file GST returns for continuous period of 6 months or fails to file GST returns for continuous 2 tax periods in case of a quarterly filer, because you have 2 schemes of filing, quarterly filing or monthly filing. So monthly filing continuously for 6 months you have not filed, so it's cancellation. And if you're a quarterly filer, 2 months you have not filed, cancellation. Avails ITC in violation of provisions of section 16, which means you have to make payment to the party, actually receive the goods. So many conditions are there in ITC. Now you're not following all of that, just claiming the credit. Again, reason for cancellation. Last is when you have obtained registration by doing some fraud, giving wrong address, giving wrong details, willful misstatement or suppression of facts. For any of these reasons, if you have given, then your registration get cancelled. So the proper officer, when he comes to know about this, he can cancel the registration. If a person is voluntarily registered, but after some time wants to cancel, can he do so? Yes. Any registration. So when we are talking about cancellation, it can be voluntary registration or because of crossing the threshold limit. In any cases, he can apply for cancellation. Clear? Very nice. So that is cancellation of registration. Now, how does this cancellation happens? What are the additional reasons? If you avail ITC in violation of Section 16, then the registered persons violates the provisions of Section 86B. That is what we have discussed earlier, that one person not paid, or you furnish details of outward supplies in GSTR 1 is more than details in GSTR 3B, right? 1 lakh sales you show, but you pay taxes only on 60,000 rupees. In such case, also cancellation can. So other than those reasons, what we had said, these are the two additional reasons when you're violating section rule 86B, that you have to pay 1% of your taxes through cash ledger and you're not falling under that exemptions, then also your registration get cancelled. And another reason is when your GSTR 1 is more than your 3B, you will get a notice. If no satisfactory answer is given, then also your registration will get cancelled. Electronic cash ledger amount will be refunded. Good question, Arun. Yes, electronic cash ledger balance can get refunded, but your electronic credit ledger balance will not get refunded. So whatever credit you have accumulated, okay, is the credit government has given for your outward supply. So if you do any outward supply, then you can get the benefit. But if you have not made any outward supply and your credit balance is just continuing, no use. At the time of cancellation or any time, you cannot claim the refund. But yes, cash ledger is like your money. Cash ledger balance, you can claim refund. Fine. So cancellation reasons. Next is on suspension of registration, which is where an application is made for cancellation of registration. It takes time to actually cancel it. So today you decide cancellation, you cannot go for cancellation. The officer will have to check the record whether there's any tax liability against your name and things. After that, he will go for cancellation. So that's why during that period, once you apply for cancellation or the officer tells you it has to get cancelled, for that period, it will be called as suspended. So first, your registration gets suspended, and after due scrutiny, your registration gets cancelled. So for what period your registration will get suspended? Registered person can apply for cancellation from the date of submission of application or from the date from which you're looking for cancellation, from which cancellation is sought, whichever is earlier. From that date till the completion of cancellation, for this period, you will be under suspended mode. Okay. And where the department has initiated cancellation on its own, from a date when they decide till the date of completion of cancellation, that period you are under suspension mode. During suspension, you cannot make any taxable supply. It's equivalent to cancellation, but your logins, your portal will be active. So that is under suspension mode. In this way, a taxpayer, it is benefit to a taxpayer because if you do not cancel it now, then that period will be open and you have to file your returns. So in this way, it is good that your registration is suspended and later on it gets cancelled. The expression shall not make any taxable supply during that period means the registered person shall not issue a tax invoice and he shall not charge tax on the supplies made during that period. So he shall not issue a tax invoice and he shall not charge any tax on his supply. In case an order came for reversal of suspension, then the taxpayer has to issue revised tax invoice and file the first return. So you applied for cancellation, right? Or the officer has issued a cancellation, they have applied for suspension. Now, during the suspension period, you cannot issue a tax invoice. But after that, what happens? Subsequently, the officer has revoke the cancellation. Matlab, he's reversed the cancellation. So for that suspension period, you have to issue revised tax invoice and file the first return. Clear with this? Now, what are the reasons for suspension of GST registration? Very nice. So, what are the points for suspension of GST registration? Proper officer can suspend the registration without affording a reasonable opportunity. Without giving you an hearing opportunity, he can suspend your registration when he does a comparison of the returns furnished with the details of outward supply, that is your GSTR-3B and GSTR-1, he compares, and your GSTR-1 is substantially higher than GSTR-3B. Or the registered person whose registration has been suspended shall not be granted any refund, and the suspension of registration shall be deemed to be revoked upon completion of the cancellation of proceedings. So, Rule 21A is amended, and they've said that without giving you any personal hearing, without giving opportunity to discuss, they can cancel your registration when your GSTR-1 details is more than GSTR-3B. So please be careful whenever you file your returns, your turnover, what you're declaring in your GSTR-1 should be matching with your GSTR-3B. Then the procedure for cancellation. What is the procedure for cancellation? Voluntary cancellation. You submit your cancellation application within 30 days of the occurrence of the event. Matlab, if your turnover goes down, if you are closed down your business, within 30 days you apply. It's not that today you closed down your business, today only you should apply. Apply it within 30 days. Then furnish the details of inputs held in stock, semi-finished goods and capital goods. Why? Because whatever stock you had, on that you have claimed credit. Now when you are closing down your business, you are not selling it. तो इसके ऊपर जो credit था, उसको reverse करना पड़ेगा. So you have to give the details of the stock, like how we had seen in the conversion process. When you are a taxable person moving to exempted, whatever is the stock, on that we have to reverse the credit. When you are under non-composition to composition, you have to reverse the credit. Those cases similarly over here, at the time of cancellation, give the details of your stock because you have to reverse the input on them. And proper officer will pass an order within 30 days from the date of application submission. So that is in case of voluntary cancellation. If the officer cancels it, then officer will issue a show cause notice and the registered person will apply within 7 days. If the reply is satisfactory, he will stop cancellation. If he is not happy, then he will issue a cancellation order within 30 days. Now, effective date of cancellation will be the date when he is cancelling it. He can mention the cancellation date from any date. So on cancellation, what you have to do, as I said, on stock, you have to reverse the credit. So ITC in respects of input calculated in accordance with Rule 44 of the GST rules. Luckily, this rules is not there. It's a little complicated. So in final, you will have this Rule 44. Then ITC on inputs computed proportionately on the basis of corresponding invoices on which credit has been availed. So whatever is your stock, on that, calculate the inputs, whatever you have utilized, or proportionate credit. क्योंकि आपने जब दिया है, you would have received 50 goods. Today in stock you have only 30 goods. So only proportionate only you have to claim, not the credit of the whole invoice. Okay. So corresponding proportionate credit or output tax payable on such, whichever is higher. So what does Rule 44 say? Claim the proportionate credit. How much ever is consumed, fine. Whatever is left out, on that, the closing stock, claim the input proportionately or calculate what is the output tax payable, whichever is higher will be the tax payable. And for capital goods, similarly, how we have done, ITC in respect of capital goods or plant and machinery calculated in respect of Rule 44. That is input tax credit involved in the remaining useful life, taking useful life as 5 years. For all capital goods, we will take 5 years itself. So if you have utilized for 2 years, then calculate ITC to the extent of 3 years, that is 5% per quarter, or what is the tax on the sale value, whichever is higher. Here, similarly, how we have discussed there in terms of change of nature of business, change of exempted to taxable, change of composition to regular, that same logic will apply here in terms of cancellation. Whichever is higher has to be paid. Then revocation of cancellation, you should apply for revocation of cancellation. आपका cancellation हो गया है, you have to reverse it. One is revocation of suspension, another is revocation of cancellation. Once you get an order of cancellation, you can apply for revocation. That is also possible. When should I apply? Earlier it was 30 days. Now they have extended that. A lot of people are coming to us saying that we have forgotten to revoke it. We are delayed. Give us additional time. So they have changed the time from 30 days to 90 days. Within 90 days, you can apply for revocation. So apply for cancellation within 90 days. Then if you have delayed, so 90 days also you did not get a notice, then you go to the commissioner, who additional commissioner, joint commissioner, or the commissioner, and tell him there is a genuine mistake. I couldn't apply for cancellation. Then from their approval, you get plus 90 days. 3 days you have normal time for revocation. You didn't do within 3 months, then go to another 3 months period within 6 months also, based on your letter from your additional commissioner or joint commissioner, you can apply for revocation of your cancellation. Then, if proper officer is satisfied, he may revoke the cancellation order within 30 days of review. Once you apply, it doesn't mean automatically you will get revoked. The proper officer will have to confirm that yes, you are a fit case. Then within 30 days, he has to give an order. If he is not satisfied, then he will cancel your application saying, no, you are not doing any business. I will not give you registration. Then the officer will have to dispose the application within 30 days. When registration gets cancelled, then what you have to do, if it gets revoked, then return for the period to be filed before applying for revocation. So before applying for revocation of cancellation, whatever is the interim period where you have not filed your returns, file it. That is from which the returns are not furnished till the date of order of cancellation, which is the effective date of cancellation. For this period, you have to file within 30 days. You cannot just go for revocation with incomplete work. Whichever returns you have not filed, file that returns, then apply for cancellation. So the returns for this period is to be filled within 30 days of the order of the cancellation, order of revocation of cancellation. When they revoke it, whatever is the due date, you have to file it. Another instance is your effective date of cancellation itself was when you have not filed the returns. Then you got an order of cancellation. Then you got an order for revocation of cancellation. For the whole period, you have to file it. So you have to file your old returns. So it doesn't mean that once you have got a cancellation and you revoke, you will not get, you'll get a waiver of all our late filing fees and all. That will not happen. If you are getting a life again for the cancellation and the officer is saying we'll give you, then you will have to file the returns from the effective date of cancellation till the date of order of revocation. Only then you will get revived. Clear? Both these slides are very self-explanatory. From the effective date of cancellation of registration, you will have to file it definitely. And for this interim period, that is from the date when returns were not furnished, the returns for this period is to be filed before applying for revocation of cancellation. And for the rest period has to be filed within 30 days of the order of cancellation. within 180 days includes 90 days. Yes, it includes 90 days. So it is not 90 plus 180. It is 90 plus 90. So it is totally 180 days. So can we revoke suspension of registration? No, we'll have to only when it is suspended, you can represent it. You cannot revoke suspension of registration. You can only revoke cancellation of registration. But during suspension, if you confirm the details, then your cancellation will be stopped. Yes, will the GST portal be working when we cancel the GST registration? Yes. In the annual return, there is something called as annual return to be filed after your cancellation also. So, during the time of cancellation and after that also, your GST portal will be active. So for your past returns, it will still be open, Preeti. For your past record, which you have to download, for the past assessments can happen. Your registration is cancelled, but past whatever mistakes you have done, for that verification scrutiny will have to happen. So that is called as adjudication. So that adjudication will continue. Vivo, your question is, I want to ask whether books which are applicable for May exams will also be applicable for September. Are the syllabus changed? September of which year? You're saying next September, right? That will definitely get changed. So May exams books will be there and it will get topped up with the updates. So use the May exams for now because September will get amended or get updated. So use the May exams for now to start your preparations and then add whatever is the updates which you are getting. Okay. Now, who are ineligible for revocation? When your GST registration was cancelled voluntary, you yourself applied for your cancellation. Now you're saying revoke the cancellation, not possible. So if the officer has cancelled and you want to revoke, then you can go it. If it is voluntary cancellation, then you cannot go for revocation. A UIN holder, you're apply for cancellation, don't ask for revocation again. A GST practitioner cannot apply. Then when registration is cancelled on the request of the legal heir, then also not possible because it cannot be a game, right? You apply for cancellation, then you say, please revoke it, not possible. Then cancellation under SGST shall be deemed to be cancellation under CGST and IGST also. One application is sufficient for cancellation of all the registrations. Fine. So that was all on the registration and cancellation. Unfortunately for this topic, there were no MCQs because very tough to make MCQs on this topic. But the reason why I'm closing this early is so that any questions which you have on this topic or any other topics we can discuss. For your next batch of subjects, you will have a new faculty. So this will be my last session. Yes, Hardik. For your first doubt, please explain question 37 5 years and 5% capital goods. Okay, the question which we had discussed, question number 37. So let me take you through that. Okay, question number 37. Inputs, you can unmute Hardik in case if I'm not. Yeah, so In this case, inputs lying in stock is fine. Then inputs in process, inputs contained in finished goods, inputs on capital goods, which is used for 9 months, taking residual life as 5 years. That is 72 months into 51 months.
Yes, sir.
So 72,000 into 51 months. So if you see this rule 44, no, the rule 44 is what we are applying here. In that case, we will have to take the number of months and not the quarter.
But sir, in the PPT, both 5 years and 5% are written.
Yeah, your voice is not clear.
Sir, in the PPT, both 5 years and 5% is written.
Okay. I will just show you the screen because this is a case of cancellation, right? Okay. So in case of rule 44, it will be monthly. And in case of conversion of taxable goods to exempted, you're right. It has to be on a quarterly basis. You're right. This is incorrect to that extent then.
So, sir, we will
Second,
do it by quarterly.
yes, quarterly. You're right.
So, sir, my answer was like 28,800.
28,800. Because it is used for 9 months, correct? Which
Yes,
is
sir.
3 quarters.
Yes, sir.
So 72,000 into 5% into 3 quarters is 10,800. So 72,000 minus 10,800 is 61,200, still the same.
Sir, like we can use. So, sir, when to use for 5 years and when to use for 5%, or we can use both.
You can use both. The answer should be same in both the cases.
No, sir. I was asking like when to use for 5 years and when to use for 5%. Like in which scenarios we can use for 5 years and which scenarios we can use 5%.
And both the scenario, all the scenarios, Hardik, because the 5% adds up to 5 years itself.
Okay, sir. Okay,
It
sir.
will add.
Okay,
The answer, both the scenarios, either you do 1 plus 2 is 3 or you do 4 minus 1 is 3, right? On that similar grounds, you do 5% per quarter or 5 years, your answer has to be same.
Okay, sir.
Second question is in exemption chapter, interest penalty on EMI levied on purchase of any commodity. In that case, will we charge GST on the same if it is given by a banker or a third person? How do we identify the same if it will be levied or not? Like again, we have to see the toleration part or something. No. So is it part of a supply? If it is part of the supply transaction, then it will be part of the supply. If it is a separate finance transaction, then it is a separate transaction where interest is charged.
So, sir, if it is like if any third person is giving separately financing my commodity, then it will be then it will levied as a GST.
Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Rule 44 questions will not be expected, Preeti, because they have specifically said that it will not be applicable for you at the inter level. September 2025 Vivo, yes, you will have a separate batch for that. Composition levy changed to taxable, then number of residual months taken, but if capital goods ITC claimed as 5% per month. No, both the cases it will be 5% for the number of quarters, how much you have used, and balance is what you have to reverse. How you calculate 3 quarters for question number 20. Okay. Question number 20. Because we have seen, no, for 17-18 it is used for 3 quarters, and for 18-19 3 quarters. So that's why we have reversed for 6 quarters in total. Okay. Any more questions on this chapter or anything else? Yeah, we have a seminar, I understand, Anil, tomorrow. So in that, we will discuss on the approach and how you should study for the exams. So we will discuss that in the seminar. Probably, I think the seminar is planned for tomorrow, so we can discuss that there. Yeah, Preeti, I think it is online. Uh, Please message me on what is that which you're talking on, the physical one. Okay. Any more questions? But I had a good experience. A lot of enthusiastic students in this batch who were asking continuous questions. Very encouraging. Keep continuing that learning because that is what is required. And this subject is a good scoring subject. It can pick up the marks to get the average. This paper will help you to pull it up. So concentrate on this, not for your 40 marks. Concentrate on this paper, including direct tax for 60 marks. This will definitely be helpful for clearing up the other papers. Yeah, if you are a registered person supplying goods to the government, that government is not payable under RCM because services received from government, we have to pay under RCM. But when you are supplying it to the government is not payable under RCM. You have to charge it and government will deduct only the TDS. Thanks, Mahi. It was really exciting. अच्छे स्टूडेंट्स नहीं है. Thank you, Niru. We really enjoyed the class. Yes, I hope I've done justice for the time, for your time, more than my time. It's the students' time, which is so very important. Uh, you have enjoyed the class, and if you could remember this, that's a really good compliment which I'm getting from you all. Thank you so much. Wow. Yes, I've tried to give my best, Abhishek. Happy that you have enjoyed the classes. Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will catch up probably tomorrow and see how we can take this forward. Very nice, Shibu. I hope I can record all your compliments. This is really, really exciting. Yeah, next class is Riddhi will be for the next batch, but I will not see you in the next batch because you will already have cleared this and gone to the next final level. So I will want you to progress further and take this forward. Yes. Thanks, Preeti. If the study was really helpful and made the subject easy, then I've achieved my objective because it is a complicated topic. If you see from outside, my intention was to make you understand the concepts and make it simple, give so much of explanation, so much of examples. That's why I was asking you to give a lot of questions so that whatever is your doubts can get cleared. Very nice, Apur. You could understand the concepts very nicely. That's very encouraging. ಮಲ್ಲು ಜದರ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೀಗ. विवो आप अभी पढ़ सकते हो मे के लिए. डोंट वरी, डोंट वेट, आप अभी पढ़ना शुरू कर दीजिए. Thank you very much. All the best. Do well for your exams, and we will hopefully catch up sometime physically also. Never know. Whenever I have not seen you, but you have seen me. So if there is any opportunity you see, please tell me hi. I'd be very happy to see that. Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.
Yes, sir.